Setting up the branch table is pretty straightforward. Let's take a look at how to set up the legend in our LinkedIn spec and add the connection types to the chart. If you don't have Plant 3D installed, just follow along with the video to get a sense of how this works. And if you do have Plant, open up the project and let's take a look. So let's start by opening our LinkedIn spec. So we're going to File, Open Spec. We're going to navigate through the desktop, Exercise Files, 0402, setting up the branch table. We're going to go into our branch connections, spec sheets, and we're going to use our LinkedIn CS150. Now I want you to notice that I have gone ahead and added a few additional components in here just to make our branch table a little more fun to build. We've added some socklets. I've added some T's. We have a reducing T and a standard T. And I've also put a concentric reducer in there that we can use in one of our branch tables too. So let's go to our branch table editor. And here's what we have, a clean blank slate. Now notice that the connections follow our pipe sizes. Our smallest size is 1 inch and our largest is 12. So I'm going to start adding some connections. And to do that, we're going to come down here to the bottom right-hand side and we're going to click Edit Legend. So what we're going to do now is add a branch. So we're going to click Add a Branch. And we're going to look at the part types that we have. Now it's going to read the spec for the types that we have available. And I'm going to start with a T. And I'm going to say from the T, we're going to use just a standard 12-inch T or 1 to 12-inch T. And we're going to give that a number here. I'm going to call this T01. I'm going to add an additional branch now. I'm going to call this one a T as well. But for this type of connection, we're going to use the reducing T. So 1 to 12-inch reducing T. And for that one, I'm going to call that O2. I'm going to add an additional one again. We've got the OLED. We're going to leave that one as used preferred part from the component because we have more than one option depending on the sizes. I'm going to leave that as O2 for the symbol legend. And the additional one I'm going to add here is just to use a mix of components here. So I'm going to use a T and we're going to use just a regular standard T. I'm going to say add a reducer. So if there's no reducing T available, we can use the option to actually just place a regular T and then use a concentric reducer. And I'm going to call this one O3. So you notice the reducer doesn't have a separate part. It's considered part of this configuration. So when we're done, we're going to say apply and we're going to hit OK. So now we have our basic connection set up. So now I'm going to go through this list and I'm just going to do some really basic connections to start with. So to do a 12 by 12, I'm going to double click on that one particular cell and I'm going to specify that you can only use a T. Obviously it's 12 by 12. There's not much else we can use. So we're going to say apply. Now I can come down and do that again for 10 by 10. I'm going to use a T. Or I can come down and just using my control key, just click each of these. And I'm going to come up to my branch fittings, select T, apply to table, and that places that one option in all of those cells in the table. Now I'm just going to continue working through this. And for this one, I'm going to use O2, which is a reducing T. Apply and OK. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to use the reducing T. Now, if a component's not available, the program will flag you because it's reading what's in your spec. So it's going to come down and it's going to say, there's something there. You're asking to add something that we don't have. So we can select a valid branch fitting for these sizes. So it's telling us that a T standard reducing is not available. Here's the options we have. We can work with a reducing T or we can use this T in a reducer. So I'm going to opt and say, let's use a reducing T for these. And say OK. And you'll see that it's gone ahead and updated those. Now, if we had opted not to accept that, it would flag us with a big red square so we know there's something wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again. I'm going to put the T in here. Now we know we can't use a T for an 8 by 12. I'm going to say don't change the branch fitting, apply, and OK. And you'll see that comes out bright red. So we know there's an issue there. That's a flag. We can come back along and say use the reducing T. So we can go ahead and fill the rest of this in, and then we're going to go and test this in our model and take a look at some of the connections that we make using the actual 3D piping.